Hey, 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 everyone. It's Monday. It's Florence here, going live, and I want to talk about getting past the fear of being visible today. But before I do, I just want to share this live into my group and on my profile. So bear with me 1 second. I hope that you are having an amazing day. It's absolutely freezing in the UK. I am freezing. That's why I've got my bathrobe on. The heating's on full blast, but it's not making much of a dent. So I've got my bathrobe on, but I'm going to, and if you are watching, please let me know. Just say hello, hi, hey. And if you are on the replay, let me know. Just type hashtag replay. I'm just sharing this into my group and timeline. And then I will be with you. We're talking about getting past the fear of being visible. Okay. Right, so getting past the fear of being visible. I don't really know of anyone who finds it completely easy to show up, be seen, be visible. For some people, it comes with lots of angst, lots of anxiety, lots of negative self-talk. For some people, it's a lot less. It feels a lot easier. There's less resistance around showing up and being visible. As somebody who is highly sensitive and an emotional person, I don't necessarily find being visible easy. And that's what I really wanted to talk about on this live. How are you okay with being visible even when you are a highly sensitive or more emotive, more emotional person? And just a couple of stories. I remember when I was training to be a teacher, and my first ever class that I was about to teach, I was so nervous and so anxious about teaching that class, to the extent that probably the 15 minutes before teaching, I literally felt like I needed to go to the toilet and poop, because there was all kinds of stuff happening in my stomach. The funny thing is that when I went into class and I taught that first lesson, I left feeling absolutely exhilarated. Hey, Michelle, thanks for joining. Hey. Thanks for joining. I felt absolutely exhilarated. I wanted to go back and do it all over again. I loved the feeling of being in front of a class and teaching. But even though I've spent years since qualifying as a teacher, being in front of people and talking, it hasn't necessarily, to some extent, it's gotten easier, but I still do feel those butterflies. I still do feel that anxiety around being visible, putting myself out there, talking, making myself vulnerable in front of other people. Another example, over the weekend, I was interviewed on a radio show. It wasn't enough that it was a radio show. Usually I do very well with radios. And for me, I guess it's the fact that nobody can really see you. So I feel super comfortable and confident in that situation. But I knew that this wasn't just going to be radio, that it was going to be filmed. It was going to be broadcasted via Facebook Live at the same time. And so there I was sitting in the studio with the presenter over on my right hand side, a mic in front of both of us, each of us, and the what he was going to use to film the interview for Facebook Live. And for the first 15 minutes, I felt really nervous again. I felt like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? You know, a part of me just felt like, oh, you know, this is just too much. I can't do this. I want to leave. You know, there's better things for me to be doing on a Saturday than being here, getting myself worked up about this interview. But I remembered just sitting there and just, you know, just having a dialogue, an internal dialogue with myself, reminding myself that this was only a phase. This was only a moment that I was experiencing. And yes, it didn't feel pleasant at all. I had, you know, all the sensations, and, you know, I guess I'm just that kind of person. I do tend to feel the anxiety and the nervousness in my stomach. But I just felt all of that stuff going on. And I had to remind myself that actually, this is absolutely normal. When we do things that are important to us, when we take ourselves out of our comfort zone, when we try to do something new, of course, we're going to feel stressed. We're going to feel anxious. It's part of this evolutionary stress response that we have. It's perfectly normal. And I guess, the interesting thing is that we do have to weigh up or balance this awareness that it's perfectly normal and understandable when we're in what we may perceive as a threatening situation, to actually having to deal with the emotions on the other hand. And I think that's what people do struggle with. We do not like feeling anxious. We don't like how that feels inside of us. We don't like the way it feels inside of our, you know, inside of our chest, our heart beating really fast, the blood pumping really, going through our body, feeling it in our ears, maybe the sweaty palms, the sweaty armpits, you know, the extra saliva in your mouth, all of that stuff. We have to deal with the physical and the physiological response of feeling stressed. And for some people, that feels like, you know, like they don't have control anymore. And it's that feeling that can often make a lot of people who are highly sensitive and highly emotional run away from being visible, because it's all of those kind of symptoms or all of those responses that a highly sensitive or a highly emotional person will experience at a heightened level. For somebody who is maybe, let's say, extrovert, they're quite used to being in front of other people. They're quite used to talking and expressing themselves. They may have all of this stuff going on, but they're used to it. It's normal for them. For them, their brain is saying, oh, this is exciting. This is good. All this adrenaline going around my body, you know, I'm enjoying this. But when people are more introverted, when they're more highly sensitive or more emotional, then they're perceiving the same thing happening in a very different way. They're perceiving it as being something that is a threat to them. They're perceiving it as something that's unpleasant, something that they want to escape from and run away from. So one of the things, yeah, Michelle, totally. I'm just gonna read what you said. So Michelle saying, you are correct. I'm trying to work on that to be on Facebook Live. And I think part of it is just embracing the fact that it is normal to feel that way. As I said, the first time when I stood in front of a class to teach, I literally felt like I was going to be sick, I was going to poop myself, all the things that kind of, you know, somebody in their rational mind would be like, why would I put myself through this? But it didn't end up like that at all. As I said, it was, you know, one of the most enjoyable and exhilarating things that I did, and I wanted to go straight back in there. It's literally about recognizing that this is a normal aspect of what it feels like to be under a situation where you're being asked to do something out of the norm for you. And as I said, if you're somebody who's extroverted, or if you're somebody who this is part of your normal everyday routine, then it's going to be less threatening. It's going to feel less threatening for you. And so you're not going to have all those the same kind of physiological and chemical response that somebody who this isn't normal for would have. So that's one thing that you've got to bear in mind. And as soon as you recognize for yourself that this is just normal and part and parcel of being in this situation, then the next thing is saying to yourself, okay, I can sit with this feeling. I can sit through this feeling. And the scripture that comes to my mind is the simple saying, this too shall pass. You know, this too shall pass. From a physiological perspective, we cannot stay in that state of fight, flight, or freeze indefinitely. We cannot stay in that high anxiety state indefinitely. Our body just isn't created to maintain that level. And so we have to come down. We have to come down. It's just impossible for us not to come down. However, if we run away from that experience, we never give ourselves the opportunity to learn that we can remain in that state. We can stay there. We can deal with the emotion. We can deal with all the stuff that's happening inside of us without, I guess, having a negative consequence from it. So it is, in a sense, it's reconditioning ourselves and in fact, coaching ourselves through the situation. So like I mentioned, when I was at the radio interview, I was quiet for the first 15 minutes. And, you know, Greg, the host, he asked me if I was okay. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm really nervous. I'm kind of like thinking, what am I doing here? And that was one part of me. That's what one part of me was saying. The other part of me knew the answer to those questions. I knew that I was here for a reason. I knew that I was, you know, doing something that was really important for me to do. And that's what kept me on the seat. And I used that information to coach myself through that difficult experience and that difficult time. And the end result was, again, that I had such a blast doing it. And so I definitely want to encourage you, if you are somebody who wants to be more visible, but you're afraid that there's lots of kind of different thoughts that are going around your mind in relation to stepping out, being visible, putting yourself out there. Maybe you're worried about making a fool of yourself. Maybe, you know, it's just the idea of, you know, tripping up over your words or anything else that might come up for you. All of that stuff is okay. If I think about myself again, and, you know, I'm the only one that I can really use an example because, you know, this is my lived experience. For me, one of the things that stopped me from being visible was not even just what would I say, but getting lost in my own mind. My mind is like, it's a deep place. And, you know, sometimes I don't even know what I want to say. And I get confused and I get caught up in my words and lost in my mind sometimes. And, you know, I would think to myself, what would happen if that, you know, if that was to happen when I'm talking or if I'm presenting? But again, just recognizing that that's okay, because nobody's perfect, and I'll always pick myself up, or I'll apologize and I'll move on. And I guess it is about having grace with yourself, having compassion, having patience with yourself, loving yourself kindly through the process, recognizing that we are all human. And there was something that somebody said quite recently and that I thought was just so beautiful that I want to share with you. She said that there's something about recognizing that we all walk with a limp. And I thought that was so beautiful, because sometimes we can look at other people as if they're all together and they're all polished and, you know, they're perfect, bright, shiny superstars. And the truth is that nobody is perfect. We all walk with a limp. And allowing other people to see that also gives them permission to not be perfect. There is no shame in feeling the fear and doing it anyway. We might make mistakes along the way, but mistakes are how we learn. Mistakes are how we grow as a person, and how we show other people that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay for them to grow and learn and be and become as well. So I really just want to encourage you that if you are struggling with being visible because of fear, maybe it's time to think about it from a different perspective and learn to sit with the fear. Think about what's going to happen at the other side. It's never as bad as what we think it's going to be. And even when it's pretty bad, we still manage to find that we can survive it and get through it. So in the long run, it's not as bad. It's not that bad. So that's what I want to leave you with today. And I hope that that is a blessing. If you are not part of my Facebook group, I do invite you to join Transformed Over Conformed, Courageously and Confidently You. And also, if you haven't yet subscribed to my newsletter or aren't connected with me via my website, you can find me on www.faithhealthpotential.com. That's www.faithhealthpotential.com. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I hope to speak to you soon. Take care and God bless.